Kate Morrison sat in her chair at the Earth Diplomatic Station. The space station orbited around a distant planet called Kepler 442b. She was Earth's ambassador to this part of the galaxy. Her job was to talk with alien races and keep peace between them and Earth. The morning started like any other day. Kate was drinking her coffee and reading reports from Earth. Then her computer made a loud beeping sound. A message was coming in from the Galactic Council. This was not good news. The Council only sent messages when they wanted something from Earth. Kate opened the message. Her face went pale as she read it. The message was short but scary. The Galactic Council was giving Earth an ultimatum. Earth had to join their group as a protected species, or they would take over Earth by force. They were giving humans only 30 days to decide. The Council thought Earth was weak. They believed humans only had simple rockets and basic spaceships. They saw Earth as just another primitive planet that needed their help to become civilized. Kate knew this was exactly what Earth wanted them to think. She pressed a button on her desk. A secure communication line opened up. On the screen appeared Captain Jake Sullivan. He was sitting in a dark room somewhere in space. Jake worked for the Earth Defense Force, but his real job was much more secret than most people knew. "Did you get the message too?" Kate asked him. Jake nodded his head. "Yes, I saw it. The Council is finally making their move. Are you ready for this?" Kate took a deep breath. "I've been ready for years, but I'm still nervous. If we mess this up, Earth could be destroyed." "Don't worry," Jake said with a small smile. "We've been preparing for this day for a long time. The Council has no idea what humans are really capable of." Jake was right. For over 50 years, Earth had been running 2 space programs. One was public, which everyone could see. This program used old-fashioned rockets and simple technology. The other program was completely secret. Only a few hundred people in the whole world knew about it. After the call ended, Kate looked out the window of her station. Space looked peaceful and quiet, but she knew that hidden in the darkness were human ships that could destroy entire planets. The aliens had no idea that humans had been watching them for decades. On Titan, one of Saturn's moons, Dr. Lisa Park was working late in her laboratory. Titan looked like a normal moon from the outside, but underneath its surface was the most advanced military base in human history. Dr. Park was the head of Project Prometheus, Earth's most secret program. The base under Titan was huge. It had factories that could build spaceships in days. It had weapons that could bend gravity and tear holes in space itself. Most importantly, it had a fleet of ships that were more advanced than anything the Galactic Council had ever seen. Dr. Park was looking at screens that showed the locations of human ships throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked where Earth's secret fleets were hiding. There were hundreds of them, spread across dozens of star systems. The aliens thought Earth barely had a dozen ships. In reality, humans had over 3,000 warships ready for battle. "Dr. Park," said her assistant, a young man named Kevin Brown. "We just received the alert from Ambassador Morrison. The Council has sent their ultimatum." "I expected this," Dr. Park replied. "How long until our ships are in position?" Kevin checked his computer. "All fleets will be ready in 6 hours. The aliens won't see us coming." Dr. Park smiled. The Galactic Council thought they were dealing with primitive humans who barely knew how to fly in space. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Council was made up of 12 different alien races. They had been the rulers of this part of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They were used to weaker species bowing down to them. When they found a new planet with intelligent life, they always did the same thing. They would offer to protect the new species, but really they just wanted to control them. The aliens had studied Earth for 20 years before making contact. They watched human rockets struggle to reach their own moon. They saw the simple space stations that humans built near Earth. Everything they observed told them that humans were at least 200 years behind alien technology. What the aliens didn't know was that humans were very good at hiding things. Every rocket launch they watched was real, but it was just for show. The real human space program was completely invisible to alien sensors. Captain Jake Sullivan was now flying through space in a ship that looked like a normal Earth vessel. But this ship was not normal at all. Its engines could travel faster than light. Its weapons could destroy moons. Its shields could stop any attack the aliens might try. Jake was heading toward the Galactic Council's main space station. In 2 days, there would be a meeting where Earth would have to give their answer to the ultimatum. The aliens expected humans to surrender without a fight. They were going to be very surprised. As Jake traveled through space, he thought about how this all started. 50 years ago, humans had detected alien signals coming from deep space. Instead of trying to contact the aliens right away, Earth's leaders decided to learn about them first. They sent out tiny spy probes that were too small for aliens to notice. What humans learned scared them. The Galactic Council was not a peaceful organization. They conquered weaker species and forced them to work as slaves. They had destroyed entire civilizations that refused to obey them. Earth's leaders knew they had to be ready for war. So Earth built 2 different space programs. The public one made humans look weak and harmless. The secret one made humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Now it was time to show the aliens the truth. The Galactic Council's space station was called Nexus Prime. It was bigger than most moons and housed millions of aliens from 12 different species. The station floated in space near a red giant star, its metal surface gleaming in the red light. Counselor Vexthari walked through the main hall of the station. He was tall and thin, with purple skin and forearms. His species, the hegemony, had been the leaders of the Galactic Council for 300 years. Vexthari believed that his people were superior to all other life forms in the galaxy. Today was the day that the primitive humans would surrender to the Council. Vexthari was looking forward to it. He enjoyed watching weaker species realize how small and helpless they were. The humans had sent a representative to give their answer to the ultimatum. In the council chamber, representatives from all 12 alien species were gathering. The chamber was a huge round room with seats arranged in circles. At the center was a platform where the humans would stand to give their response. Admiral Rick Cooper stepped off his ship and onto the docking bay of Nexus Prime. His ship was called the Ed's Liberty, and it looked exactly like what the aliens expected from humans. It was small, slow, and seemed to be held together with basic metal and simple engines. Rick was a tall man with gray hair and calm blue eyes. He had been in the Earth military for 30 years, but the aliens didn't know about his real experience. They thought he was just another primitive human who was scared of their superior technology. 2 alien guards escorted Rick through the corridors of the station. The guards were from a species called the Draxi. They were large, muscular creatures with thick gray skin and no sense of humor. They looked at Rick like he was an interesting insect. "Human," one of the guards said in broken English. "You walk fast. Council not wait for slow species." Rick smiled politely. "I'll try to keep up." As they walked, Rick was secretly scanning everything around him. Hidden in his uniform were tiny devices that were recording the layout of the station, the positions of weapons, and the patrol patterns of guards. This information was being sent back to Earth's secret command centers. Lieutenant Commander Amy Rodriguez was not on Nexus Prime, but she was watching everything that happened there. She was sitting in a small ship hidden behind an asteroid field, 3 light years away from the Council station. Her job was to coordinate Earth's hidden agents throughout the galaxy. Amy had short black hair and sharp green eyes. She was one of Earth's best intelligence officers. For the past 5 years, she had been running a network of human spies who were spread across Council territory. Agent Delta 7, report your status. Amy spoke into her communication device. On her screen appeared the face of a man who looked like a typical space trader. His real name was Tony Martinez, but for the past 3 years he'd been living among the aliens as a merchant. The aliens thought he was just a human who had learned their language and wanted to trade with them. I'm in position near the Council's main military base, Tony reported. Their entire fleet is here, just like we expected. They have about 200 ships, all using old plasma technology. Amy nodded. Good. Remember, when the signal comes, you know what to do. Similar conversations were happening all across the galaxy. Humans had spent decades infiltrating alien society. Some posed as traders, others as diplomats or scientists. The aliens thought these humans were just curious primitives who wanted to learn from superior civilizations. In reality, they were gathering intelligence for the coming war. Back on Nexus Prime, Admiral Rick Cooper entered the council chamber. The room fell silent as hundreds of alien eyes stared at him. Counselor Vexthari stood up from his seat and spoke in a voice that echoed through the chamber. Human representative, Vexthari announced. You stand before the Galactic Council to hear our judgment. Your species has been evaluated and found to be primitive and in need of guidance. Rick stood calmly on the platform. He looked around the room and saw the arrogant expressions on the alien faces. They all expected him to beg for mercy. We offer your species a place in our great civilization, Vexthari continued. You will become a protected species under our care. In exchange, you will surrender all military assets to the Council. You will accept our governors to rule your planet. And you will provide 30% of your population to work in our colonies across the galaxy. Murmurs of approval came from the alien representatives. This was how it always went. The Council would make their demands, and the primitive species would have no choice but to accept. Vexthari raised one of his 4 hands. You have traveled far to give us your answer, human. We assume you are here to formally surrender your planet to our protection. Rick looked directly at Vexthari. His face showed no fear, which surprised some of the aliens. Most primitive species were terrified when they stood before the Council. I thank the Council for their generous offer, Rick said in a clear, steady voice. However, Earth must respectfully decline. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. No species had ever refused the Council's protection. It was unthinkable. Vexthari's purple face turned darker with anger. You refuse our protection? Do you not understand what this means? Your primitive species cannot survive without our guidance. Earth appreciates your concern, Rick replied, but we prefer to remain independent. Another counselor stood up. This one was from a species called the Corvon, who looked like giant insects with multiple eyes. Human, you do not comprehend the situation. We are offering you a choice only. Out of courtesy, if you refuse our protection, we will take your planet by force. Rick nodded as if this was perfectly reasonable. I understand your position. However, Earth's answer remains the same. Vexthari was now furious. Very well, human. You have chosen the path of destruction. Guards escort this primitive back to his pathetic ship. Then prepare 3 warships to follow him back to Earth. We will demonstrate to his species what happens when they refuse the Council's generosity. As Rick was led away, he activated a small device hidden in his pocket. This device sent a signal that traveled faster than light across the galaxy. It was a message to every hidden human ship and agent. The time for pretending was over. Amy Rodriguez received the signal in her hidden ship. She immediately began sending orders to human agents across the galaxy. Within minutes, Dozens of sleeper agents were moving into position near critical alien installations. On Titan, Dr. Lisa Park saw the same signal. She turned to her staff and said, "Begin Phase 2. It's time to show them who we really are." Deep in space, invisible to alien sensors, human fleets began moving toward their targets. The ships that had been hiding for decades were finally coming out of the shadows. Admiral Rick Cooper boarded the EDS Liberty with a small smile on his face. The aliens thought they were about to destroy a helpless human ship. Instead, they were about to witness the true power of humanity for the first time. 3 Council warships followed Admiral Rick Cooper's ship as it left Nexus Prime. The alien ships were massive, each one 3 times larger than the small human vessel. Their hulls were covered with weapon ports and energy shields that glowed with blue light. Commander Zektar led the alien fleet from his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. He was a hegemony officer like Counselor Vex Thari, with the same purple skin and forearms. Zektar had destroyed dozens of primitive species in his career. He expected this to be just another easy victory. "Target the human ship," Zektar ordered his weapons officer. "We will disable their engines first, then destroy them slowly. I want their final transmission to Earth to show their planet how helpless they are." The weapons officer, a Draxi with thick gray skin, operated the plasma cannon controls. "Weapons charged and ready, Commander. The human ship appears to have no shields or defensive systems." Zektar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Of course they don't. These primitives barely know how to build rockets. Fire when ready." 3 bright beams of plasma energy shot out from the alien ships. The beams were powerful enough to vaporize a small moon. They streaked through space toward the EDS Liberty, which seemed to be flying slowly, and helplessly. Admiral Rick Cooper stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the plasma beams approach on his screen. Around him, his crew worked calmly at their stations. None of them seemed worried about the incoming attack. "Quantum barriers online," reported Lieutenant Kelly Davis, the ship's defense officer. "Confirmed," said Rick. "Let's show them something interesting." The plasma beams reached the ED's Liberty, and then something impossible happened. The deadly energy simply vanished. It didn't bounce off shields or get absorbed by armor. The plasma just stopped existing when it came near the human ship. On the Dominion's Wrath, Commander Zektar stared at his screens in confusion. What happened? Where did our weapons fire go? His science officer, a nervous creature with tentacles instead of arms, worked frantically at his console. "I don't understand, sir. The energy just disappeared. Our sensors show nothing unusual about the human ship." "Fire again," Zektar shouted. "Use maximum power." All 3 alien ships fired their weapons at once. Dozens of plasma beams, enough energy to destroy a city, shot toward the small human vessel. Once again, all of the attacks simply vanished. Before they could hit their target, Rick Cooper pressed a button on his command chair. "This is Admiral Cooper to all human vessels. Begin decloak sequence." Suddenly, space around the alien ships began to shimmer. What had appeared to be empty space was revealed to contain 12 massive human warships. Each ship was larger than the alien vessels and covered with weapons that the aliens had never seen before. The EDS Liberty itself began to change. Its hull, which had looked like simple metal, started to glow with a soft blue light. The ship's true form was revealed as advanced armor plating unfolded from hidden compartments. Weapon ports opened along its sides, showing technology that seemed to bend light itself. Commander Zektar's 4 hands shook as he stared at the screens. "This is impossible. Humans don't have technology like this. Where did these ships come from?" From another part of the galaxy, Commander Steve Walsh watched the battle on his command screen. His ship, the EDS Titan's Fury, was hidden near an asteroid belt, waiting for orders. Steve was a calm man with brown hair and steady hands. He had been preparing for this moment for 10 years. "Sir," said his weapons officer, Lieutenant Dan Roberts, "we're receiving the signal from Admiral Cooper. All human fleets are revealing themselves across the galaxy." Steve nodded. "Good. It's time to show the Council what real power looks like. Target that dead moon over there. Prepare the gravitational artillery." The Titan's Fury had weapons that no alien species had ever imagined. Instead of using energy or explosives, it could manipulate gravity itself. Steve's ship could create artificial black holes, bend space and time, and turn matter into energy. "Gravitational weapon charged," reported Dan. "Target locked on the moon." "Fire," Steve ordered. A beam of invisible energy shot out from the Titan's Fury toward a lifeless moon that was floating nearby. When the beam hit the moon, something amazing happened. The moon began to collapse in on itself, getting smaller, and smaller as gravity crushed it down to the size of a marble. Then, just as quickly, the artificial black hole disappeared and the compressed matter exploded outward in a controlled burst of light. The demonstration was being broadcast to every Council ship in the area. Alien commanders across the galaxy watched in horror as humans casually destroyed a moon and then made the destruction disappear. It was technology beyond their understanding. Back near Nexus Prime, the alien ships were trying to retreat, but they found that their engines weren't working properly. The human ships were projecting some kind of field that made it difficult for alien technology to function normally. Rick Cooper opened a communication channel to Commander Zektar. The alien's purple face appeared on the screen, looking terrified and confused. "Commander," Rick said politely, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding. You seem to think that humans are a primitive species. What are you?" Zektar asked in a shaking voice. "This technology should not exist. We have been watching your planet for decades. You only have simple rockets." Rick smiled. "That's what we wanted you to think. Those rockets and space stations you've been watching are what we call our public space program. Our real technology has been hidden from you." On Nexus Prime, Counselor Vexthari was receiving reports from across the galaxy that made no sense. Human ships were appearing everywhere, demonstrating impossible technology. His military commanders were reporting that their fleets were being surrounded by vessels that shouldn't exist. "Get me the human ambassador," Vexthari ordered. "Now." Kate Morrison appeared on his screen, still sitting in her diplomatic station. She looked completely calm, as if nothing unusual was happening. "Counselor," Kate said pleasantly, "I assume you're calling about the recent developments in space?" "What is the meaning of this?" Vexthari demanded. "Your species is supposed to be primitive. You barely have spaceflight." "Oh, we have spaceflight," Kate replied. "We've actually been traveling between stars for over 30 years. We have bases in 17 different star systems. We've been watching you for quite some time." Vexthari's face went pale. "That's impossible. Our sensors would have detected you. Your sensors can only detect technology that you understand." Kate explained. "Human science developed differently than yours. While you were perfecting energy weapons and plasma shields, we were learning to manipulate space and time itself." On his screen, Vexthari could see reports coming in from all over Council territory. Human ships were appearing near every major alien base and colony. They weren't attacking, just making their presence known. The message was clear. Humans had been everywhere for years, and the aliens had never noticed. Lieutenant Commander Amy Rodriguez was coordinating the revelations from her hidden command ship. On her screens, she could see human agents across the galaxy dropping their disguises and revealing their true purposes. Tony Martinez, who had been posing as a traitor near the Council's main base, was now standing in the base's command center. He had walked in past all their security and was calmly explaining to the alien commanders that he had been gathering intelligence for Earth for 3 years. Similar scenes were playing out everywhere. Humans who the aliens had thought were harmless visitors were revealing themselves to be highly trained military operatives. The scope of Earth's deception was becoming clear. Phase 3 is complete, Amy reported to her superiors. All human assets are now revealed. The aliens are beginning to understand the true situation. The Galactic Council was learning that they had been completely outmaneuvered by a species they had considered primitive. Humans hadn't just hidden their technology. They had infiltrated alien society at every level while preparing for this exact moment. Counselor Vexthari tried to contact the Council's military fleets scattered across the galaxy, but something was wrong with their communication systems. Every time he sent a message, it came back as undelivered. The humans were somehow blocking all of their signals without the aliens understanding how. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human ships. They're broadcasting on all Council frequencies." "Put it on the main screen." Vexthari ordered. Dr. Lisa Park's face appeared on every screen throughout Nexus Prime. She was sitting in what looked like a command center, but the technology behind her was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Screens showed star maps, with thousands of red dots marking human positions throughout the galaxy. "Greetings, Galactic Council," Dr. Park said in a calm voice. "My name is Dr. Lisa Park, and I am the Director of Humanity's actual space program. I believe it's time we had an honest conversation." Vexthari leaned forward in his chair. "What do you want, human?" "I want to explain something that your species seems to have difficulty understanding," Dr. Park replied. "You assume that because your technology is advanced, you are superior to everyone else. But you've made a critical error in judgment about humanity." On the screen behind Dr. Park, images began to appear. They showed human cities on distant planets, massive space stations hidden in asteroid fields, and fleets of ships that dwarfed anything the Council possessed. For over a century, Earth's greatest scientists worked in secret, Dr. Park continued. While your species mastered energy manipulation, we learned to control space and time. While you built bigger weapons, we discovered how to rewrite the laws of physics. Colonel Matt Johnson was commanding a group of human ships near a barren planet in the outer rim of Council territory. His fleet consisted of 5 vessels, each one carrying technology that could reshape worlds. Matt was a stocky man with red hair and a beard. He had spent 15 years preparing for this demonstration. "All ships, begin terraforming sequence." Matt ordered his fleet. The 5 human ships moved into position around the dead planet. The world had no atmosphere, no water, and no life. It was just rock and dust floating in space. But the humans were about to change that. Beams of energy shot out from the human ships, but these weren't weapons. They were matter conversion arrays that could rearrange atoms at the molecular level. The ships began pumping gases into the planet's atmosphere, creating air that could support life. Other beams turned rock into soil and created vast oceans. In a matter of hours, alien observers watching from nearby space stations couldn't believe what they were seeing. Terraforming a planet was something that took the Council hundreds of years to accomplish. The humans were doing it in real time, transforming a dead world into a garden planet before their eyes. "Impossible," whispered Commander Zaktar from his ship. "This kind of technology violates everything we know about science." Admiral Rick Cooper's voice came over the communication channel. "No, Commander, it doesn't violate science. It just uses science that your species hasn't discovered yet." General Claire Davis was monitoring the situation from a hidden base in the Alpha Centauri system. Her base was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, invisible to alien sensors. Claire was a tall woman with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. She was in charge of Earth's overall military strategy. "All fleet commanders, this is General Davis," she announced. "Begin Phase 4. Show them the true scope of our operations." Across the galaxy, human fleets began decloaking near major alien installations. The aliens had known about a few dozen human ships, but now they were seeing the truth. Humans had over 3,000 warships spread across 17 star systems. Each fleet was more advanced than anything in Council space. The ships could travel faster than light, manipulate gravity, and survive in conditions that would destroy. Alien vessels. Some of the larger ships were the size of small moons and carried enough firepower to eliminate entire civilizations. But the most shocking revelation was still to come. Near the edge of Council territory, a massive human construction project became visible. It was a space station so large that it could be seen from several light years away. "What is that thing?" Vexthari demanded, staring at the images on his screen. Dr. Park smiled. "That is Harmony Station, humanity's gift to the galaxy. It's designed to facilitate peaceful communication between all species. The station has universal translators, diplomatic facilities, medical centers, and research laboratories. We built it to create a better future for everyone." The station was a marvel of engineering. It had docking bays that could accommodate ships from any known species. Its central core contained meeting halls where thousands of representatives could gather safely. The outer rings housed advanced technology that could solve problems like disease, hunger, and resource scarcity. Captain Peter Hayes was the commander of Harmony Station. He was a peaceful man who believed in diplomacy over warfare. Peter had spent 10 years designing the station to be a symbol of hope rather than fear. "Counselor Vexthari." Peter's voice came over the communication system. "Harmony Station is open to all species. We invite the Council to send representatives to see what we've built. Our goal is cooperation, not conquest." The aliens were struggling to understand what they were seeing. Every piece of evidence suggested that humans could have conquered the galaxy years ago. Their technology was superior, their fleets were larger, and their strategic positions were perfect for launching an invasion. But instead of attacking, humans were offering friendship. Lieutenant Commander Amy Rodriguez was still coordinating intelligence operations from her hidden ship. Her screens showed the locations of human agents throughout Council territory. After years of pretending to be traitors and diplomats, these agents were now revealing their true capabilities. "Agent Network 7, begin final phase," Amy ordered. In response to her command, human agents across the galaxy began demonstrating advanced technology to their alien hosts. Traders who had seemed to use simple tools revealed that their equipment could manipulate matter at the atomic level. Diplomats showed that they could speak any alien language perfectly, thanks to advanced neural implants. Scientists demonstrated that they understood alien biology better than the aliens themselves. Tony Martinez was still in the Council's main military base, surrounded by confused alien commanders. He had just finished explaining how he had been studying their defenses for 3 years. "You walked among us all this time," said the base commander, a large Draxi named General Thurok. "You could have sabotaged our entire operation." "Yes," Tony replied calmly, "but we're not here to destroy you. We're here to offer you something better than the empire you've built." Back on Nexus Prime, the Council representatives were meeting. In emergency session, the revelation of human capabilities had shattered their understanding of galactic politics. For 1,000 years, they had been the dominant power. Now they were faced with a species that could have eliminated them at any time. "We must consider our options carefully," said Counselor Yethra, a representative of the insect-like Corvin species. "The humans clearly have the power to destroy us, but they're choosing not to. Why? Counselor Vextari was studying the tactical reports coming in from across the galaxy. They want something from us. No species reveals this kind of power without a reason. Dr. Park's image appeared on their screens again. Counselors, we can hear your discussion. Our universal translators work quite well. And you're right, we do want something from you. What do you want? Vextari asked. We want you to stop conquering other species, Dr. Park replied. We want you to release the planets you've enslaved. And we want you to join us in building a better galaxy for everyone. The council chamber fell silent. No one had ever made demands of the Galactic Council before. But these weren't just demands. They were requirements backed by overwhelming force. The Galactic Council chamber was quieter than it had ever been in 1,000 years. 12 alien species that had ruled the galaxy through fear and force were now facing a choice they had never expected to make. They could either change their ways or face destruction from a species they had considered primitive. Vextari looked around the chamber at his fellow council members. Their faces showed confusion, fear, and something else they rarely experienced: humility. The humans had demonstrated power beyond their understanding, but more importantly, they had shown restraint. Dr. Park, Vextari said slowly, your species could have destroyed us at any time. Why didn't you? Dr. Park's image on the screen showed her sitting calmly in her command center. Behind her, screens displayed human fleets maintaining defensive positions throughout the galaxy. The ships were ready for battle, but they weren't attacking. Because destruction isn't our goal, Dr. Park replied. We've been watching your empire for decades, Counselor. We've seen how you treat conquered species. We've seen the suffering you cause. But we've also seen that your people are capable of better. Ambassador Kate Morrison's voice joined the conversation from her diplomatic station. The hegemony weren't always conquerors. Counselor Vextari, your species was once known for art and philosophy. The Corvin were brilliant engineers who built wonders across the galaxy. Every species in the Council has something valuable to contribute. On the bridge of the ED's Titan's Fury, Commander Steve Walsh was monitoring the negotiations while keeping his gravitational weapons ready. His demonstration with the moon had shown the aliens that human technology could reshape reality itself. Sir, his weapons officer, Lieutenant Dan Roberts, reported, we're detecting movement from several Council fleets. They appear to be withdrawing from conquered territories. Steve nodded approvingly. Good. They're starting to understand that the old way of doing things is over. Admiral Rick Cooper's ship, the EDS Liberty, was now revealed in its true form. The vessel that had seemed small and primitive was actually one of the most advanced ships in the human fleet. Rick was using it to escort Counselor Vextari to a meeting that would change galactic history. Admiral, Vextari said as they traveled through space, I must ask you something. How long have your people been planning this? Rick considered the question carefully. We started preparing the day we detected your first transmissions 50 years ago. But the planning really began much earlier than that. What do you mean? Humans have always been good at learning from history, Rick explained. On our own planet, we saw what happened when advanced civilizations encountered less advanced ones. The results were usually conquest and suffering. We decided that when we went to the stars, we would do things differently. They were traveling to Harmony Station, the massive human construct that served as a symbol of cooperation rather than domination. The station was larger than most alien cities and more advanced than anything the Council had ever built. Captain Peter Hayes welcomed them aboard Harmony Station with a mixture of formality and warmth. Peter was proud of what humanity had accomplished, but he was also eager to share it with others. Welcome to Harmony Station, Peter said as he showed Vextari through the corridors. Every system here is designed to accommodate different species. We have environments suitable for all known forms of life, translation systems that work in real time, and meeting spaces where any conflict can be resolved peacefully. Vexthari was amazed by what he saw. The station had medical facilities that could treat injuries from any species, research laboratories where scientists could work together on problems that affected the entire galaxy, and cultural centers where different civilizations could share their knowledge and art. How long did this take to build? Vexthari asked. About 15 years, Peter replied. But we had help from species you've never heard of. What do you mean? Peter smiled. The galaxy is much larger than Council territory, Counselor. There are dozens of peaceful civilizations beyond your borders. They've been working with humanity for years to create alternatives to conquest and empire. This revelation shocked Vexthari even more than human military technology. The Council had believed they controlled most of the known galaxy, but apparently there was an entire network of species that had been avoiding them. Lieutenant Commander Amy Rodriguez was coordinating the peaceful transition from her command ship. Human agents throughout Council territory were now working openly with local populations to establish new governments based on cooperation rather than fear. Agent teams report successful transitions on 47 planets, Amy announced. To her superiors, former slave colonies are establishing democratic governments with human technical assistance. The changes were happening faster than anyone had expected. Species that had been oppressed by the Council for generations were eager to try new forms of government. Human technology was helping them build infrastructure, solve resource problems, and establish trade relationships with other liberated worlds. General Claire Davis was overseeing the military aspects of the transition from her base in Alpha Centauri. Human fleets were maintaining order while Council forces withdrew from conquered territories, but there had been no violence. The demonstration of human power had been so overwhelming that resistance seemed pointless. All Council fleets have ceased defensive operations, Claire reported to Earth Command. We're detecting some isolated groups of ships that refuse to accept the new order, but they represent less than 5% of Council forces. Dr. Park was working on the most important part of the transition, sharing technology. Humans were offering to help other species develop advanced science, but with careful restrictions on military applications. We're providing clean energy systems, medical technology, and space travel capabilities, Dr. Park explained to a gathering of alien scientists. But weapons technology remains restricted until we can establish trust. Colonel Matt Johnson was leading one of the most impressive demonstrations of human capabilities. His ships were terraforming dead worlds throughout former Council territory, creating new homes for displaced populations and refugees from the old empire. We can give you new worlds to live on, Matt explained to a group of former slave species. Planets with perfect climates, rich resources, and no history of conflict. All we ask in return is that you help us build a peaceful galaxy. The signing ceremony for the new Galactic Charter took place aboard Harmony Station 3 months after the initial confrontation. Representatives from over 100 species gathered in the station's main assembly hall, including many civilizations that had been hiding from the Council for centuries. Councilor Vexthari signed the document that dissolved the old Galactic Council and established a new democratic federation. Under the charter, every species would have equal representation, regardless of their military power or technological advancement. I never thought I would see this day, Vexthari admitted to Ambassador Kate Morrison as they watched the ceremony. My people spent centuries believing that might made right. You've shown us something better, Kate nodded. Humans learned this lesson the hard way on our own planet. We fought terrible wars before we understood that cooperation is stronger than conquest. We wanted to spare the galaxy from making the same mistakes. Admiral Rick Cooper was standing with other human commanders, watching as former enemies became partners in building a better future. The human fleet remained the most powerful military force in the galaxy, but it was now dedicated to protection, rather than conquest. "You know," Rick said to Captain Peter Hayes, "I thought we might have to fight a war to change things." "I'm glad we were wrong," Peter smiled. "The best victories are the ones where nobody has to die." Dr. Park gave the final speech of the ceremony, addressing the assembled representatives from across the galaxy. "Today marks the beginning of a new age," she said. "An age where science serves peace, where technology creates abundance for everyone, and where the strongest use their power to protect the weakest." As the ceremony ended, human ships throughout the galaxy began new missions. Instead of preparing for war, they were exploring unknown regions of space, helping develop new worlds, and searching for other civilizations that might benefit from joining the peaceful Federation. The galaxy was vast, and there was still much work to be done. But for the first time in 1,000 years, the future looked brighter than the past. Humanity had proven that the greatest strength was not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to know when not to use it. Commander Steve Walsh stood on the bridge of the Titan's Fury, looking out at stars that no longer represented territories to be conquered, but new frontiers to be explored together. The age of empire was over. The age of cooperation had begun.
The message arrived on Earth at exactly noon Universal Time. For a full minute after it played, the United Government chamber was silent. Then someone laughed. It started with Senator Julie Brown, who covered her mouth quickly, but not before. The sound escaped. Then Representative George Miller joined in with a chuckle. Within moments, the entire chamber of Earth's highest governing body erupted in laughter. The alien ambassador from the Velian people watched in horror. His translucent skin pulsed with deep purple waves, a sign of extreme distress among his kind. "I fail to understand your reaction," the Velian said, his voice translator struggling to convey his confusion. "The Jakril Empire has declared war on all members of the Galactic Concord. This is the first declaration of war in 3,000 years. Billions of lives are at risk." President Susan Blake took a deep breath and composed herself. She was a tall woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen over a century of peace. Yet there was something in those eyes now, a spark that hadn't been there yesterday. "Ambassador Kell, please forgive our response," she said. "You must understand that for other species in the Concord, peace is all you've known for 3 millennia. For humans, peace is something we've chosen to maintain." The Velian's skin rippled with confusion patterns. "I don't understand the distinction." Admiral Eleanor Wright stood up from her seat at the Defense Council table. Her uniform, previously ceremonial, suddenly looked functional. "What the President means, Ambassador, is that humanity hasn't forgotten how to fight. We've simply chosen not to." Across Earth and all human colonies, similar scenes played out. In bars and homes, in offices and parks, humans watched the Jakril message with expressions ranging from excitement to grim satisfaction. The alien threat was massive, their ships numerous, their weapons advanced. They had emerged from beyond the galactic rim with technology that outpaced anything in the Concord. Yet nowhere among the human populations was there panic. "My grandfather used to say this would happen," said Joe Carter, a farmer on the colony, World New Nebraska, as he watched the news with his neighbors at the local bar. Said humans were fools to think peace would last forever. Been keeping his old military manuals in the family cellar all these years. The bartender, a woman named Kelly Davis, nodded as she poured drinks. "My family has been sending someone to the underground academies every generation, just in case." She smiled. Guess it wasn't paranoia after all. On Defense Station Epsilon, orbiting the edge of human space, Admiral Wright stood before a massive wall that had, until yesterday, appeared to be solid metal. Now it had opened to reveal a command center that few knew existed. "Status report," she ordered. Commander Peter Ross, a man whose official job had been historical maintenance specialist, now sat at the main tactical station in a uniform that perfectly matched historical military records. "The sleeping fleet is awakening, Admiral." We'll have 60% of vessels operational within 24 hours. The rest will follow within the week. And our personnel? The historical reenactment. Societies are reporting in from all colonies. Turns out we have quite a few trained pilots and soldiers who've been playing war games as a hobby. Admiral Wright allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had agreed to peace, had helped build the Concord, had even sworn to uphold its non-aggression principles. But they had never, not once in 3,000 years, actually believed it would last forever. Dr. Alan Martinez hurried through the halls of the Human Military Archives, a facility that most believed was simply a museum. Assistants followed him, opening sealed rooms that had been maintained for centuries. "We need the tactical assessments from the 2300s, he called out, and the theoretical weapon designs from the last millennium. All of it." A young assistant named Lisa Moore looked confused. "Sir, these are just historical records, right? Theoretical designs?" Martinez paused and turned to her. "Do you really think humanity spent 3,000 years not improving on our weapon designs? We called it theoretical. We called it historical. But we never stopped preparing." In distant corners of human space, hidden shipyards powered up. Facilities that had been disguised as research stations or storage depots revealed their true nature. The dormant war machine of humanity awoke with an efficiency that could only come from careful, secret maintenance. On the conquered Central World, representatives from 30 alien species argued and panicked. They had no significant military forces. The conquered had maintained peace for so long that actual weapons were seen as historical curiosities. The human representative, Jack Nelson, sat quietly during the chaos. When finally called upon to speak, his words silenced the chamber. The conquered asked for humanity's help 3,000 years ago because we were good at war. Too good. You asked us to join you in peace, and we did. But we never promised to forget. He stood, straightening his formal clothes. Humanity will lead the defense of the conquered. We have the ships, we have the weapons, and more importantly, we have the mindset. How? Demanded the Ardelian representative, his feathered crest standing on end in agitation. How could you possibly maintain war readiness for 3 millennia of peace? Nelson smiled. Because it's who we are. We hope for the best but prepare for the worst. Always. The first Jackril attack came 3 days later. They struck an outlying Velian agricultural world, expecting easy victory against the peaceful Concord members. What they found instead was a defensive line of ships that had seemingly appeared from nowhere. Old vessels by human standards, but crewed by men and women who had trained their entire lives for a war they weren't sure would ever come. Captain Betty Harris commanded the lead vessel. Her family had maintained military tradition as historical interest for 15 generations. "All ships battle formation," she ordered, her voice steady. "Remember your training. Remember what we fight for." The Jackril communication came through on all channels. "Surrender your world and your lives will be spared. Resistance is futile against the might of the Empire." Captain Harris allowed herself a small smile before responding. "This is Captain Betty Harris of Earth Defense Force. Perhaps you've never heard of humans. You're about to learn." And with that, humanity returned to war after 3,000 years of waiting. The Jackril would soon discover their grave mistake. They had threatened the one species in the galaxy that had never truly embraced peace. Humans had simply been biding their time, keeping their skills sharp, waiting for the day when the universe would need warriors again. That day had come. 1 week after the first battle, Admiral Eleanor Wright stood in the massive underground chamber beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean. The facility had been hidden for 3,000 years, known only as Deep Sea Research Station Alpha in official records. Now its true purpose was clear to all. Row after row of warships filled the enormous space. Some were ancient designs, maintained perfectly over the centuries. Others were newer, built in secret and disguised as research vessels or trading ships. Engineers and crew members moved between them with purpose, preparing for war. "How long have we maintained this place?" asked Ambassador Kell, the Velian representative. His skin had turned a pale blue color, showing his amazement. Since the peace treaty, Admiral Wright replied simply, "We agreed to peace. We never agreed to be defenseless." The admiral led the alien ambassador through the facility. In one section, soldiers practiced combat in a large training area. In another, weapons specialists tested new designs against simulated Jackril shields. "Your people kept all this secret from the conquered for 3,000 years?" the Velian asked. "Not exactly secret," said Commander Frank Oliver, joining them. "We called them historical preservation projects, military museums, cultural heritage sites." He smiled slightly. "No one asked why we kept them in working order. Reports from across human space showed similar facilities opening their doors. On Mars, the Strategic Combat Academy, officially a center for theoretical military history, had filled with new students. On Luna, the sleeping giant facility had awakened, launching ships that had been maintained by generations of caretakers. Day, Jackril had attacked 3 more worlds since their first defeat. Each time they had been met with stronger resistance. The humans were spreading throughout conquered space, bringing their war knowledge with them. At the Velian homeworld, Lieutenant Olivia Collins watched the alien defense forces train. The Velians had been peaceful for so long they barely remembered how to fight. But they were learning quickly. "Keep your formation tight," she called out as their ships performed a practice maneuver. "The Jackril expect you to break and run. They don't expect you to hold your ground." Her second-in-command, a Velian named Trell, turned his ship in a tight arc. "Why did humans keep preparing for war when everyone else embraced peace?" he asked over the communication system. Olivia guided her ship alongside his. "Because peace isn't a natural state," she explained. "Peace is something you build and maintain, and sometimes you have to defend it." On Earth, the United Government had transformed. What had been a peaceful administrative body now functioned as a war council. President Susan Blake met with her advisors in a room that had, until recently, been hidden behind a false wall in the main chamber. "The Jackril are pushing toward the Ardelian worlds next," said Defense Secretary Carl Mason, pointing to a 3-dimensional map of conquered space. "Their ships are faster than ours, but we have the advantage of position." Dr. Alan Martinez entered the room, carrying data tablets. For 3,000 years, the human military archives had been dismissed as a historical curiosity. Now it was the most important facility on Earth. "We've analyzed their attack patterns," he said. "The Jackril follow predictable tactics. They've never faced serious resistance before." "How do you know that?" asked the Ardelian ambassador, his feathered crest rising with worry. "Because they make mistakes," Martinez replied. "They're technologically advanced but tactically simple. They expect fear. They expect surrender. They don't expect actual warfare." President Blake studied the battle reports. "They've conquered other species beyond the galactic rim. That much is clear. But they've never met anyone who fought back effectively." In space, the war expanded. The first major fleet battle took place near the Ardelian home system. Captain Betty Harris led a mixed force of human and Concord ships against a Jackril battle group, twice their size. "Standard attack formation," ordered the Jackril commander to his forces. "They will flee as the others did." But the defenders did not flee. The human ships moved with practiced precision, protecting the less experienced Ardelian vessels. They absorbed the first Jackril attack wave, then countered with coordinated strikes that confused the enemy. "Target their command ship," Captain Harris ordered. "Break their communication first, then their formation." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Jackril retreated for the first time since they had entered conquered space. On their home world, the Jackril Emperor demanded answers from his generals. "How are they resisting?" he asked, his armored skin plates clicking with anger. The intelligence said the conquered had no military forces. Grand General Vark bowed low. "Great Emperor, we have discovered something unexpected. One conquered species, the humans, maintained military readiness despite the peace. They are teaching the others to fight." "Impossible," the Emperor said. "No species maintains war capability during 3,000 years of peace." "The humans did," Vark replied. "And now they are awakening. Our scouts report more ships emerging from hidden facilities every day." At the conquered Central World, Representatives from all member species gathered in emergency session. The chamber that had once hosted diplomatic discussions now functioned as a war room. Jack Nelson, the human representative, stood at the center. "We need to coordinate our efforts," he said. "The Jackril have numbers and technology, but they lack experience against prepared opponents. How can we possibly win?" asked the Melosian representative, her crystal body structure vibrating with fear. "We have been peaceful for so long." "You will learn," Nelson replied. "Humans remember war so others don't have to. But now you must remember too." Across conquered space, human military advisors spread to all worlds. They opened training centers, converted civilian ships for defense, and taught battle tactics to species that had never known conflict. On New Nebraska, Joe Carter loaded his family's old weapons onto a transport ship. Around him, other farmers did the same. "Never thought I'd use these," he told his neighbor. "My grandfather would be proud." At the bar in town, Kelly Davis closed her business and put on a uniform that had been in her family for generations. "My great-grandmother wore this in the last war," she told her friends. "Now it's my turn." Throughout human colonies, people stepped forward, bringing out hidden skills and knowledge passed down through families, just in case. What had seemed like paranoia for 3,000 years now revealed itself as foresight. Admiral Wright received reports from all sectors. The sleeping fleet was fully awakened. The hidden factories had converted to military production. The historical reenactment societies had transformed into actual fighting forces. "We kept the peace," she told her command staff. "We honored it. We valued it. But we never took it for granted." The Jackril would soon learn what it meant to face an enemy that had used 3,000 years of peace to prepare for war. Humanity had not forgotten how to fight. They had simply been waiting for the day when fighting would be necessary again. That day had come. 1 month into the war, the Concorde had stopped retreating. The Jackril advances had slowed, then halted. Now, for the first time, the invaders faced a new situation. They were being pushed back. Admiral Eleanor Wright stood before the first meeting of the Human War Council in 3,000 years. Representatives from all conquered species filled the chamber, watching with a mixture of hope and fear as Wright outlined the next phase of the war. "The enemy expected us to be soft," she said, her voice firm. "They thought 3,000 years of peace meant we had forgotten how to fight. They were wrong." On the main display screen, a map showed the current battle lines. Red markers indicated Jackril-held systems. Blue showed conquered territory. The line between them had begun to shift. "We've contained their advance," Wright continued. "Now we take the fight to them." Professor Kyle Washington stepped forward. He had been a teacher of theoretical military history before the war. Now his knowledge was being put into practice. "The Jackril have a fundamental weakness," he explained to the gathered representatives. "They've never faced defeat before. They don't know how to adapt." In the month since the war began, the conquered species had changed under human guidance. The scholarly Melosians, once focused only on art and philosophy, now applied their crystal technology to weapons development. The diplomatic Ardelians had formed special units that used their natural speed and agility for reconnaissance missions. Even the gentle Velians had found their place in the war effort. Their ability to change skin color made them perfect for communication and coordination. Velian signal officers now served on all major ships. "We don't just fight with weapons," Professor Washington told the council. "We fight with our minds, with innovation, with adaptation." On the manufacturing world of New Detroit, engineer Patricia Rogers activated the Phoenix Protocol. What had been hidden factories beneath civilian production facilities now operated openly, converting regular assembly lines to military equipment within days. "We maintained these conversion plans for 3 millennia, she explained to the visiting Ardelian official. "Every factory on every human world was designed to switch to war production if needed." "Your people are frighteningly prepared," the Ardelian observed, his feathered crest rippling with concern. Patricia smiled as she watched robotic arms assembling ship components. "We prefer to call it prudent." In orbit around the contested planet, Varus III, Captain Richard Butler commanded a fleet of ships that until recently had appeared to be ordinary merchant vessels. Now their hidden weapon systems had been revealed, transforming them into a formidable fighting force. "Move to intercept formation," he ordered as Jacqueline ships appeared at the edge of the system. "Remind them why they should have stayed on their side of the galaxy." The battle was short but intense. The Jacqueline ships, while technologically advanced, followed predictable tactics. Captain Butler's forces, though using converted civilian vessels, maneuvered with precision born from generations of simulated combat drills. When it ended, the Jacqueline had lost 5 ships. The conquered forces lost none. In the Grand Command Chamber, on their homeworld, the Jacqueline Emperor raged at his generals. Reports of defeats came from multiple fronts. His mighty invasion force, which had conquered a dozen species beyond the galactic rim, was being pushed back by an enemy that should have been defenseless. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "The intelligence was clear. The conquered has been at peace for 3,000 years. Grand General Vark, now fearful for his life, presented the latest analysis. "Great Emperor, we have discovered that the humans are unique among conquered species. While the others embraced total peace, the humans maintained—" He hesitated, searching for the right word: readiness. The Emperor's armored skin plates clicked with fury. "Explain." They disguised it as cultural preservation, as historical study, but they never stopped preparing for war. Vark displayed images captured from battles. "Look at these human vessels. Some are ancient designs, but perfectly maintained. Others are new, but built to appear as civilian ships until needed. And now they teach the other species to fight?" "Yes, Great Emperor. Each Concord race is finding its place in the war effort, guided by human expertise." Vark hesitated before continuing. "Our analysts believe the humans use the 3,000 years of peace to develop theoretical weapons and tactics. They continued evolving their war capability while appearing to honor the peace. On the captured Jacqueline outpost of Nexus Station, Commander Samantha Green interrogated a prisoner, the first high-ranking Jacqueline officer to be taken alive. The alien's armored exoskeleton gleamed under the bright lights of the detention room. "Why did you attack the conquered?" Green asked, her voice calm. The Jacqueline officer, Division Commander Crusade, clicked his mouthparts in what the translators interpreted as derision. "The conquered was weak. 3,000 years without war had made you soft. Easy prey." Green leaned forward. "You studied us before you attacked. You knew about the Concord's history of peace. But you missed something important, didn't you?" "The humans," Kraz admitted. "We did not understand your species. You maintained the appearance of peace while preparing for war." "We didn't just prepare for war," Green corrected. "We studied it. We refined it. We turned it into a science while hoping we'd never need to use it again." Back on Earth, President Susan Blake received a communication request from the Jacqueline. The Emperor himself wished to speak. The War Council gathered to hear the message. The Emperor's image appeared on the main screen, his armored form imposing even in digital form. "You have surprised us, humans," he said, the translator converting his clicks and hisses to understandable speech. "We offer terms. Return our captured territories and we will withdraw to our own space." President Blake looked to Admiral Wright, who shook her head slightly. "Your offer is refused," Blake told the Emperor. "We will not negotiate while you occupy any conquered worlds." "Then the war continues," the Emperor declared. "You cannot defeat us. Our technology is superior, our numbers greater." Admiral Wright stepped forward. "But your experience is lacking. You've conquered those who couldn't fight back. Now you face those who never forgot how." After the communication ended, the conquered representatives looked to the humans with new understanding. "You maintained the peace for 3,000 years, said Ambassador Kell, his skin now a thoughtful shade of green. "Yet you prepared for war the entire time. Why?" Jack Nelson, the human representative, smiled sadly. "Because peace is precious exactly because it's fragile. To maintain it, you must be ready to defend it." Across conquered space, the counter-offensive gained momentum. Human ships led the way, but vessels from all Concord species now fought alongside them. The Jacqueline, facing determined resistance for the first time in their history of conquest, began to falter. On the bridge of her command ship, Admiral Wright reviewed the latest battle reports. 1 month ago, the Concord had faced an enemy they were unprepared to fight. Now the tide had turned. "Send the order," she told her communications officer. "All fleets to advance. We take back what was taken from us." The Jacqueline were about to learn another hard lesson. Humans didn't just remember how to fight wars. They remembered how to win them. 3 months into the war, the Concord counteroffensive pushed deep into territory the Jacqueline had claimed. What had begun as a desperate defense had transformed into a coordinated assault. Worlds that had fallen to the invaders were now being liberated one by one. Commander Daniel Howard led the fleet that approached the Jacqueline fortress world of Crathor. His ships formed a precise attack pattern, a mixture of ancient human warships and newly constructed Concord vessels. "All ships report ready, Commander," said his second-in-command, an Ardelian named Trill. The feathered alien had proven to be an excellent tactical officer. "Begin the approach," Howard ordered. "Remember the plan. The Jacqueline expect us to attack head-on. We won't give them what they expect." The human way of war had surprised the Jacqueline at every turn. Where the invaders used overwhelming force and straightforward attacks, the conquered forces under human leadership used deception, misdirection, and unexpected tactics. The battle for Crathor lasted 3 days. When it ended, the fortress world had fallen, and the Concord had captured vast amounts of Jacqueline technology and intelligence. In a secured room deep within the captured fortress, Commander Howard and a team of specialists examined the data they had found. What they discovered disturbed them all. "They've conquered at least 17 other species beyond the Galactic Rim," said Intelligence Officer Laura Williams, reviewing the files. "Some were peaceful, like the conquered races. Others fought back but were overwhelmed." Howard studied the star maps showing the extent of the Jacqueline Empire. "They've been expanding for centuries. The conquered wasn't their first target, just the next one." "Why? What drives them to conquer?" asked Trill, his feathers bristling with concern. Williams brought up more files. "According to these records, it's their cultural belief. They see all other species as either threats to eliminate or resources to control. They've never encountered serious resistance before us." Howard sent the information immediately to Admiral Wright and the War Council. The conquered leaders needed to understand this wasn't just about defending their territory. The Jacqueline would never stop unless they were stopped. On Earth, the War Council reviewed the intelligence from Crathor with growing concern. The chamber was silent as the images of conquered worlds appeared on the main display. "This changes everything," said President Blake finally. "We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for species who couldn't defend themselves." Admiral Wright nodded grimly. "The Jacqueline will keep conquering until something stops them. That something is us." The Velian ambassador, Kell, spoke up. His skin had turned a deep blue, showing his distress. "How can we defeat an empire this size? Even with human military knowledge, we are outnumbered." Professor Kyle Washington stepped forward. "Numbers aren't everything in war. The Jacqueline have expanded through brute force. They've never needed to innovate, to adapt. And we have," said Admiral Wright. "For 3,000 years, we continued developing theoretical weapons and tactics. Now we put them to use." In the captured shipyards of Nexus Station, engineer Patricia Rogers supervised the analysis of Jacqueline technology. Human and Concord scientists worked side by side, studying the alien ships and weapons. "Their tech is advanced, but not as efficient as it could be," Rogers explained to the Melosian engineers. "They haven't had serious competition to drive innovation." The Melosians, with their crystal-based technology, had already begun incorporating what they learned into new defensive systems. The scholarly race had transformed their deep understanding of physics into powerful weapons platforms. "We can match them," said the lead Melosian engineer, her crystalline form glowing with excitement. "Perhaps even surpass them." On the Jacqueline homeworld, The Emperor called his highest generals and advisors together. The large chamber echoed with the clicking of armored body plates as the gathered leaders expressed their agitation. "How are we losing to an enemy that was at peace for 3,000 years?" the Emperor demanded. Grand General Vark displayed the latest battle reports. "The humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They maintained peace without sacrificing their war capabilities." "Impossible," hissed an elder advisor. "No. Species devotes resources to war preparation during extended peace. The humans did," Vark insisted, "and they've taught the other Concord species to fight. The Ardelians now operate elite infiltration units. The Melosians have developed new weapons using our own technology against us. Even the Velians, the most peaceful of all, now coordinate complex battle communications." The Emperor's armored tail slammed against the floor. "We must change our strategy. Gather our forces from the outer territories, concentrate our strength." In human space, ordinary citizens continued to support the war effort. On New Nebraska, Joe Carter's farm now grew specialized crops needed for medicine and food supplies. In orbit above, his son piloted a patrol ship that had once been a family transport. At what used to be Kelly Davis's bar, Concord soldiers from 6 different species trained together, learning to coordinate their natural abilities under the guidance of retired military instructors. Throughout human colonies, historical preservation sites had transformed into active military bases. Technology that had been developed theoretically over centuries now found practical application. Commander Howard's fleet continued to advance, liberating a Jackril prison world where captives from multiple conquered species were held. As the Concord ships landed, the prisoners watched in disbelief. "We thought no one would come for us," said a reptilian being from a species the Concord had never encountered before. "No one has ever defeated the Jackril." "Times change," Howard told him. "The galaxy is bigger than they thought." News of the liberation spread quickly. For the first time, people under Jackril control began to resist. On dozens of conquered worlds, the oppressed population sabotaged Jackril operations, inspired by stories of conquered victories. In Admiral Wright's command center, a new strategy was taking shape. The star map now showed conquered forces pushing toward the heart of Jackril territory. "We've proven we can defeat them in battle," Wright told her commanders. "Now we need to end this war." Lieutenant Olivia Collins, recently promoted after her success training Velian Defense Forces, studied the attack plan. "They're pulling their forces back to defend their core worlds. They've never had to fight defensively before, which gives us an advantage," Wright said. "They don't know how to protect what's theirs. They only know how to take what belongs to others." Across conquered space, the combined fleets prepared for the final offensive. Ships from all conquered species gathered. Their crews now experienced fighters despite having been peaceful just months before. President Blake addressed the War Council one last time before the assault began. "We didn't ask for this war. We maintained peace for 3,000 years. But when peace was no longer an option, we remembered how to fight." Admiral Wright nodded. "And now we teach the Jackril the most important lesson of all, that some enemies should never be provoked." The final phase of the war was about to begin. The Jackril were about to face an enemy they had severely underestimated, an enemy that had used 3,000 years of peace to perfect the art of war. 6 months after the Jackril had declared war on the conquered, Admiral Eleanor Wright stood on the bridge of her flagship as it entered orbit around the Jackril homeworld. The massive planet, covered in sprawling cities and industrial complexes, now lay defenseless before the combined might of the Concord fleet. "All weapon systems are locked on their primary defense centers," reported Commander Frank Oliver. "Their remaining ships have powered down weapons. They are awaiting your orders, Admiral." Wright looked out at the planet below. The final offensive had taken just 2 weeks. The Jackril had gathered their forces to make a last stand, but they had been outmaneuvered at every turn. Human tactical knowledge, combined with the unique abilities of the other conquered species, had proven too much for the once mighty empire. "Open a channel to their leadership," Wright ordered. "It's time to end this." The Emperor's palace stood at the center of the Jackril capital city. Its tall spires and armored walls had never been threatened before. Now the Emperor and his advisors gathered in the Grand Hall as Admiral Wright, President Susan Blake, and representatives from all conquered species transported down to accept their surrender. "You could destroy us," said the Emperor, his voice translator struggling to convey his confusion. "Your weapons are aimed at our cities. Our fleets are defeated. Why do you not simply end our existence?" "Because that's not why we fight, Admiral," Wright replied. "We fight to defend, not to destroy." President Blake stepped forward. 3,000 years ago, humanity chose peace. We joined the conquered and set aside our warlike ways. But we never forgot how to fight. Because we knew that true peace must be defended. The Jacqueline Emperor's armored plates clicked softly as he considered her words. "In all our history of conquest, no species has defeated us. Now we face species that maintained peace for 3 millennia, yet remembered war better than we who practiced it constantly." "There is a difference between conquest and defense," explained Jack Nelson, the human representative. "You fight to take. We fight to protect. That gives us purpose beyond simple victory." The terms of surrender were strict but not vengeful. The Jacqueline military would be dismantled. Their conquered worlds would be freed. Their technology would be shared with all conquered species, and human observers would be installed throughout their territory, not as rulers but as teachers. As the formal documents were signed, Admiral Wright turned to Ambassador Kell, whose skin now showed patterns of wonder and respect. "You never really trusted humans, did you?" she asked him quietly. "We feared your history," the Velian admitted. "Your violent past made other conquered species nervous. Now we understand. You kept that knowledge to protect us all." In the weeks that followed, delegations from worlds conquered by the Jacqueline arrived at the conquered central world. Species unknown to the conquered came seeking friendship and protection. The 17 peoples who had lived under Jacqueline rule now found themselves free for the first time in generations. "We would have remained slaves forever if not for your intervention," said the leader of the Krell, a reptilian species that had been among the first conquered by the Jacqueline. "How can we repay such a debt?" "By joining us in peace," President Blake told them. "The conquered grows stronger with each new member." On Earth and throughout human colonies, the war facilities began to return to their disguised state. Ships were maintained but no longer flew in combat formations. Training continued but was once again called historical reenactment. Professor Kyle Washington addressed a special session of the Conquered Assembly 1 month after the war ended. Representatives from all conquered species, including newly liberated ones, filled the chamber. "Peace isn't the natural state of the universe," he told them. "Peace is something you build and something you defend." Humanity never forgot that lesson, even during 3,000 years of prosperity. In her office at Defense Station Epsilon, Admiral Wright reviewed the final reports of the Mar War. The cost had been high. Thousands of lives lost, worlds damaged, resources depleted. But the alternative would have been far worse. Lieutenant Olivia Collins entered with the latest update from the former Jacqueline territories. "The liberation is proceeding well," she reported. "The conquered worlds are establishing their own governments again. Many are applying to join the conquered." "And the Jacqueline themselves?" Wright asked. "Surprisingly cooperative. They're a hierarchical species. With their leadership defeated, the population has accepted the new reality. Some are even helping with the rebuilding efforts." Wright nodded, pleased. "They'll need time to change their culture from conquest to cooperation, but they'll learn." On New Nebraska, Joe Carter and his son returned to their farm. The crops needed attention after months of war production. In town, Kelly Davis reopened her bar, though many of her customers now included alien visitors learning about human culture. "Never thought I'd serve drinks to a Jacqueline," she told Joe when he visited. "Times really have changed." "Not as much as you'd think," Joe replied. "We went back to farming, you went back to bartending, just like our grandparents did after the last war and their grandparents before them." "You think we'll need to fight again someday?" Kelly asked. Joe looked around at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens sharing stories and drinks. "I hope not. But if we do, we'll remember how." In the Grand Hall of Earth's United Government, President Blake dedicated a new memorial, not just to those who had fought in the recent war, but to all who had maintained the knowledge of war during the long peace. For 3,000 years, humanity walked a unique path, she said to the gathered crowd. We embraced peace with our whole hearts, while keeping the memory of war alive in our minds. Some called it paranoia. Today we recognize it as wisdom, Admiral A. Wright stood at attention as the memorial was unveiled. It showed not weapons or battles, but a simple book, representing the knowledge preserved through generations. We return to peace now, Blake continued, but we do so with clear eyes. The universe is vast and full of wonders, but also dangers. True peace is not the absence of conflict, but the strength to face it when it comes. On the observation deck of Defense Station Epsilon, Admiral Wright looked out at the stars once more. The war was over. The emergency had passed. The glass case had been resealed around humanity's martial knowledge, but never locked, never forgotten. Across human space, the war museums, which had never quite been decommissioned, were maintained with even greater care, just in case. After all, even 3,000 years was just a moment in the lifetime of the galaxy.